Hey guys, how you doing? Steve,
What's going on? What's
the
going on?
delay, just go with it. I'm doing it. So here's why for the delay. The reason for the delay is we had a wholesale deal that was all set to close. Literally, we were at the day of closing. We were going to make 20 grand on this thing, and it was a pretty rough house, but the buyer knew what he was getting into, and everything was fine. Local house, right down the street from me, about 5 miles away. Um, the day of closing, the lenders for the buyer rather, the buyer's lender, said buyer some snafu where the buyer's only allowed 3 loans with the lender. Somehow he already had 4, and they said, "Listen, we screwed up and giving you 4. We're not giving you 5." A little bit of dirty pool against the buyer. So at first I didn't feel anything negative toward him, but really dirty pool against us because we were there, and I had already, and this is something I wasn't thinking. The deal was $4,000 underwater. And so Ryan and I decided instead of losing 16,000, making 20 versus, well, we were going to make 25. So it was 25 to 21. Fine, we'll eat that. We'll pay it. We'll make the deal happen. We'll eat our fee to make there be enough money to clear title, and also to give the seller the 1,500 she needs. Well, then this happened. Basically, then this happened. Then I spent the entire weekend going back and forth with the buyer and saying, "Listen, I get that, this kind of was a sucker punch to you as well, but you want to go back and find another lender and go through appraisals, which they did not go through the first time, and yada, yada, yada." And I was put off a little bit because I'd offered to lend them on this deal, and they chose not to go. I'm not put off by that, but the lender they used was a non-appraising lender. And I knew this house was going to be rough on appraisal. The end appraisal was fine, but the now appraisal was going to suck. And he wanted to replace it with a lender that appraises. And he's like, I need another 3 weeks. I said, great. I said, all of that's fine. We need a $1,500 extension fee, not for me, for the seller. And you have to agree. Agree that you're going to take this house for cash if you don't find a lender, and prove to me you have the cash.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, number one, no, I'm not putting $1,500 more against this deal. That's not happening. I tried originally to get a consulting, and in all of this, I then switched the deal with the seller to a subject to. So all he had to do was borrow his rehab money. I said, I'll wait on my wholesale fee until you flip it, borrow the rehab money, pay a $1,500 extension, pay me a $2,000 consulting fee for having made this magic happen. No, 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 no. And I said, okay, then let's partner in the flip. No. And okay, I said, take the deal, but you got to go up $1,500 on your deposit. So instead of losing $3,000, if you walk away, you lose $4,500. I said, no. In fact, if my other lender doesn't take the deal, I get my deposit back. I said, no.
Right.
No, you don't. We were here the day of closing. Your deal was clear title only, or you lose your deposit. Title is clear. We're good. I want $3,000. I get the deposit. So I took on the house. And truthfully, I took on the house, and I probably should have slowed a little bit and done what I always do in my flips, which is have a pre-inspection. But I was overwhelmed. I had too much else going on. I also was a little unsure whether we could walk away. I mean, we could walk away on the seller and lose the deposit, but I was just a little unsure because she's fairly connected in the community of having a reputation issue.
Mm-hmm.
And the numbers are not bad on this. what I didn't know and couldn't have known is that most of the sill plates, that which hold up the walls of the house, had rotted away.
Mm.
So I've taken on this flip now, and it's kind of floating in midair. I have to replace all this. I have to replace 6 sill plates. And there's a bunch of other, as we started doing the clean out of the subfloor, usually it's you scrape off the subfloor, you lay down some 1/2-inch plywood, and you go on, put your flooring down. No, it's more than that now. So I'm regretting not just doing whatever I had to keep that buyer.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I had to be up there getting the contractors going and going over everything that was. So we as wholesalers don't need to do things like inspections. That's up to the buyer. They see it, they like it, their contractors like it. It's buyer beware. But if we're going to take our own money, and Ryan and I had 3 different deals this last couple of weeks that went, and that's why I was overwhelmed, because we had another deal which would be a sweet deal, and we had an inspection done. House had no problems, nothing important anyway. And we did, and it was going to be a wholesale, but it was going to be a wholesale where he wanted $50,000 up front, which this is a sweet house, beautiful house. I mean, move into it tomorrow. We could sell it for $350 tomorrow, no questions. But the buyers or the seller, we ended up walking away from that one because the seller was just too nuts. He wouldn't list it, and turns out when we did the title search, there's $50,000, $60,000 more than he told us was owed on the property. And we went back and said, it's great that you want $50,000 up front. The plan was he takes 50, we take the profit, and we're probably both making about the same amount of money. But there's now $50,000 less in the deal because there's $50,000 more in debt on the property.
Mm-hmm.
And he got all sorts of, no, that was a COVID loan, not a COVID grant. I said, no, it says right here. I said, if you can prove it wrong, go for it. And so that one went sideways as well. Unfortunately, there's a few, and deals will go sideways. I always warn new folks and people joining this business that kind of like my days in television and production where, the show must go on is the phrase, because shit goes wrong. And you're there, holding 2 ends of a rope together to keep everything from falling down. I liken every closing I've ever had almost to being an airplane sliding sideways into the jetway, which is the thing you walk down to get on the plane. Like it's not, oh gee, I smoothly land and turn, and what very few closings have nothing going on. Everything can be a shit show at the last minute. That's why transaction coordinators are so important. So there were a few different ways, and I'll be covering this in a future thing. A few different ways where deals can go sideways.
Mm-hmm.
But we are very close on. Okay, so we're very close on having this system built out. We are functionally ready to use this system. Now we have 2 buyer forms. If you find a buyer, here is the buyer public form.
Right.
And and I'll only spend a couple seconds on buyer, but basically we have, this is, and I'm putting together a website where these will exist. This is what the buyers will tell us about themselves, and I'm shortening this form. I've not made the public version of it, but buyer first name, last name, company name, phone, email, Facebook, LinkedIn. What counties do you prefer? What states do you prefer? Like that. And what are you looking for? Like, we're just looking for basic stuff. It's the public form of the buyer is gonna be like 7 questions. Then the form I just showed you is the team form. So buyer comes to our website, however they find us. You post this link on your Facebook, hey, looking for buyers, boom, it goes in here, and it'll be the short buyer form. Mm-hmm. Then we all get notified, and then you follow up, or somebody follows up and fills in this deeper information. This is where you call a buyer up and you say, hey, maybe you get the Facebook, LinkedIn. What counties do you prefer? What states do you prefer? can you provide describe what you're looking for? What's your minimum price? What's your maximum price? What's your storage, your property type that you're looking for? And it's also where in the team form, the internal form, you're asking them for probably, and we'll handle this with you. And this is not like an expectation, but I want you to get credit if you bring in a buyer too. But you're going to ask them. We're going to find out things like, well, can you prove you have the money? Bluntly, we don't like to do financed wholesale deals. We don't like buyers using lenders unless they're no appraisal lenders. This guy was okay because it was a no appraisal lender, and he was a known quantity to my title company. He's done several deals with my title company.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever. But so basically, in the team version of the buyer form, you're filling out more information. And what's happening is if they fill out the web form, they may not, and then you fill out this form, the system is connecting that information in there. And you can go back to this team form as often as you need to when more information is gained. So basically, where that connects for most of what you're doing, and that was the wrong click. Okay. This is the right click. For most of what you're doing, there is the fast buyer. So you're either using the public side is either storage guys, your fast storage buyer, or sell us your property, which is basically the same exact form. Basically, one is for the storage website, one is for the non-storage website. But this is what the world fills out on our website. I'll actually make it even easier and just go to huntingforhomes.com. So this is on the Hunting for Homes website, what the public is filling out when they come to our website and inquire. This is the link. If you put up a Facebook post or whatever, you can send them here. They choose self-storage, they choose residential, they choose mixed use and commercial. We're just keeping it simple at this point. Residential, how many units, seller name, email. Again, we're not asking a lot of them. And even though it says city and state up here, we also ask them to use the drop down if they're willing to. If they're not, fine. For county picker or whatever, is it currently listed with a broker? No, being a bad answer for us. And I am the broker or wholesaler submitting the deal. This allows third-party wholesalers to send stuff into us and say, hey, I have this deal. Here, guys, take a look and see what you can do to sell it. Because we're licensed in PA and many of them are not. Which you'll still get credit on, but it'll be a slightly different mix because it'll be them, you, and us. But effectively, it'll be the same mix between us. But we just, if it's represented by something else, then whatever. If it's another broker, it's a whole different conversation. But whatever. Please describe condition. Do you live there? Remaining mortgage, timeline to sell, any images you want to give us. If you're not the owner, how are you involved with the deal? We keep the public form fairly simple. And then there is the team version of the same form. I know I'm showing you a lot, but there's the public-facing website form, and there's the team-facing website form. And that's really the sort of logic, I guess, behind it. And so in the team-facing real estate form, I'll put it that way, I guess. In the team-facing real estate form, team member name, you, and team member email I need to actually put down there as well. But so you, and that will eventually be a drop down when the developer finishes it. Property type, and the beautiful part about this is you'll fill this out. It won't show you the seller's information yet. It will in an early July iteration, but it'll match this based on the address to that. So if you're working from a seller submitted form, make sure you put the address in exactly the way the seller put it. Okay. So then the system can have a little brain connection. Again, this will be improved, but basically this is the form you're working from. And the beautiful thing is every time you fill out this form with more information, as long as you match the property ID, property address, or the property ID number, it'll add to that record. And if you don't, if you're off by a little bit, no big deal, because we can just say, hey, and we'll find the similarities. We'll say, hey, show me every one of Nair's things. Oh, look, these three are the exact same address. Oh, well, let's merge them. No problem.
Okay.
So this is where you're getting, and where it says fake stage intake, I got to hide those fields. Those are things that are like internal to the software. Other seller, any other seller, seller email, deal type, PA MLS listed. Okay, so PA MLS listed or SB 1173 means, is it something that requires a PA license or is it not? So if it's 1 to 4 unit, it's got to be an 1173 deal or a listing. If it's not 1 to 5 units, if it's land or 5 plus or commercial or mixed use, it doesn't have to go under the licensing law. And this is just you telling us, I mean, basically, is it 1 to 4 unit or is it not? Real simple. Agent assigned, it's a variation of team upstairs, of the team one upstairs. This is the field the developer will be adding into. Property nickname, say, you'll say like Wright Street Duryea, whatever. You name it there. And again, that's another thing that the system will match up with every time you go back. It's a way of connecting. When do they need the money? Superman assigned. Really bad phrasing. The developer's got to improve. This is sort of my lame way of doing it. That said, okay, there's you as the agent, Nair, whatever. There's Ryan as the Superman, I guess, the leader.
Right.
And then there's me as the guy who, as far as Zoho is concerned, I'm not putting myself necessarily above Ryan, but as far as the software is concerned, I'm the one that paid for the software. The software account's in my name. So it will make the only agent guy, like there's, Shad, Nair, whatever. If Nair puts this one in, Nair is the only one at that level who gets access to it. Ryan, if it's a wholesale residential, Ryan is this. All wholesale residentials, basically, Ryan gets to work on. And then I sort of have access to the back end of everything. So this again is one you probably will. You don't need to worry about it. I will get this assigned in there. We'll plug in that player. It's usually going to be Ryan, or on self storage it might be Mark. Whatever. Form fill date, property nickname, property address, city, county chooser, zip, state chooser. How many units? Why are you looking to sell? And this is where, when you're having that conversation with the sellers and you're going off the script and you're writing your notes in your notebook or on your WordPad or whatever the hell you're using, when the call's over, you're pouring it in here and you're answering out. These are basically the questions. You can use this I can't use this when I'm talking to them, except I can use it as a script. I can just kind of go down the list and I won't fill it in here because it's too much. I go up here, I fill something in, I go down here and I get lost. But I can kind of scan over the questions, say, oh, I didn't ask the how many bedrooms and bathrooms? Are there tenants or income? What's the income? What's the expenses? Again, these are things that we will fill this in over time. You might get it all from the seller the first shot. You might have to go back and research it. You might never get some of these answers, and we'll have to jump in and try to whatever. Advertised. So advertised is different from MLS listed. So MLS. So the listing one up here is not. Is it listed? Is it 1 to 4 or is it not 1 to 4? Is it SB 1173 qualified? The one down here, and the developer is putting these in the right order, but this one is literally, is it on the MLS or not? Well, does it have a broker attached? Advertised, is it anywhere? Is it on Facebook? Is it in any way showing as an off-market, in any way showing as a buy this property? Do you see it on Zillow actively being advertised? Do you see it on Facebook Marketplace? Do you see it anywhere? Yes or no? I don't know why MLS listed this twice. I'll have to fix that. Follow-up notes. Kitchen. So follow-up notes is whatever you have. Kitchen era. Modern. Brand new. Da, 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 da. Cosmetics era. Furnace age. Roof age. Now, the cool thing of this is by the end of July-ish, the system will automatically develop repair estimates based on these answers. So it'll say, oh, An average kitchen cost me $10,000. Steve has told me that a semi-modern kitchen is 50% of that. So system says, oh, kitchen, $5,000. So this will develop into a tool that'll actually give us some of the answers.
Oh, so it can run the numbers for you, is what you're saying?
Exactly. I mean, obviously, it can't read the pictures, but
Well,
it
yeah,
can.
not the pictures, but okay.
Yeah, but like it can. You say, okay, baths. You'll say roof age. Anything above 15 years is going to be a full replacement.
Okay.
20 years is going to be a replacement with plywood. But yeah, it'll put you in the ballpark. It'll say, oh, cosmetics, cosmetics era, 10 years, 10 to 15 years. Oh, well, we need to paint and carpet this thing or paint and flooring this thing. $15 a square foot times whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to develop. So you'll put in the ARV and it'll do that math. You'll put in the whatever. So, wastewater, water source. Describe what works and doesn't. What systems do not work or are not on, which is a little bit similar to that question, but literally it gives check boxes. Is there a mortgage? What's the remaining mortgage? Other decision makers. Name and contact of how we reach the decision makers. Is it an estate? Timeline to sell. Oh my God, they're going to die or they don't care. Google link. Literally, you Google the address and you take what's in the search bar and you put it there. Zillow link, Google Maps, other link. ARV. This is when you have looked around. What do you see as the after repair value? And I probably need to add one for current value. And why do you think it? Well, this estimate is that. Okay. I mean, I'm not, I don't love Zestimate, but you're telling me why. Hey, I couldn't find it on PropStream, or I don't have PropStream, or whatever. Hey, this is why I think this is the ARV.
Mm-hmm.
Link to the Google Drive where your picture at, or wherever your pictures are at. Link to that. Your estimate of rehab. This is not the calculated. Why do you feel this rehab? And again, I'm not asking you to know these things. We'll get you there over time. But this is where you're collecting whatever we know. Single line, I just threw another line in there so the developer would have extra room to play with. Video upload, current website URL, Zillow, Gmaps. And some of these are duplicated because over time, I wanted to make sure we had enough web fields for things I didn't think of, like Realtor.com, like, whatever other sites. And I can always rename these, but I wanted there to be a place to start.
Mm-hmm.
Flood zone, very complicated way you'll find this out, but this is also something I could fill in. I needed a field for flood zone. And by the way, you go to floodsmart.gov and you can put the address in and you'll find out the flood zone of any property in the country. And hang on a second. Hey, buddy, I didn't forget. I'll give you a call back this afternoon, though, okay?
Okay, no problem. I'll be here.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. A is bad, okay? When it comes to flood zone, anything. If it starts with A, not a good plan, basically.
Okay.
More image uploads, more file uploads, property address. Some of these are duplicates. I'm letting the developer, because I put these forms together and now I'm letting the developer kind of clean them up. Square feet home, square feet lot, number of buildings. Submit. So both of these forms, both the public form and the team form, get the data into one place.
Gotcha.
And from there, and so when these forms are filled out, right now it emails me. I think it emails me and Ryan. And as the developer finishes, it's going to email whichever team member filled this out. We'll add you to the form. I didn't know how to do that within the system, so that's why I need a developer. Now, so eventually, next month-ish, the software will be built out to the point that it'll calculate everything. It'll calculate profit on the deal if we sell it at this. It'll calculate repair estimate and everything else. And it'll give us a lot of tools. So it'll allow us to fairly quickly get much more organized, help us get back to sellers and keep track, and also keep track of our promises to them and our deadlines. It'll also assign tasks. As soon as you fill this form out, it will assign you and copy me and Ryan, kind of assigning all three of us, but whatever. Hey, next step is go to Zillow, go to PropStream, go to this, go to that, and tell us what you find. You might have already done that. You might have already filled those fields in, but it will say, okay, next step, make sure Ryan and Steve look at this and help develop an offer. Next step, whatever. So this is the most important thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you this form right now by email.
Gotcha.
Email and text. Oh, he's on the other one. Sorry. I'll add real estate. So, seller lead. So that way we all have it. So that's really the most important thing that I wanted to make sure that you guys saw was we have this. Now, what happens in the back end? Is this connecting or is being connected by the developer? So this is where I realized I shouldn't be doing it because I built the CRM side in a very beginner way. And then I went to connect the two and it wouldn't connect. So I said, okay, you know what? I'm done trying to guess my way through this. I'm going to hire a developer. So once it connects through to this, then that's where all the task management, document uploads, file organization, and all the fancy stuff really happens. It's kind of over here.
Okay.
So we start using this form now. We really get ourselves an organized way for everything to happen. It'll grow from there. Now, is there anything you have questions on or projects or whatever?
Well, as far as projects and anything like that, no, not right now, because I'm trying to figure out. Me and my partner was talking yesterday, and it had recently hit me that how we've been maneuvering lately was, and this was a terrible way to do it. Well, a terrible way to say it, but we've been basically throwing a dart at the board at trying to hit a bullseye instead of actually like trying to do this the correct way, I would assume, in my opinion. So I'm trying to now. I'm thinking I wanted to do something along the lines of instead of getting a few hundred leads every now and then try to see if we could throw a dart at the bullseye. Because in my head, we're just basing it off luck, and that's not a good way to run a system. So I was trying to figure out, maybe if I do like 1,000 leads, either 1,000 to 2,000 leads a month, or like definitely way more than a few hundred.
Yeah,
maybe it'd be more streamlined that way.
So, okay, good.
Because it's been like on and off. Like, I mean, like you've seen the deals, but they've been like either low motivated or just, we will put all our energy and time into deals that just didn't make sense or things like that. And I don't want to do that because that's a waste of time or money. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, next week, and I'll front load this a little bit with you before next week, but next Friday, we're going to go in depth on how to target your markets and how to whatever. By the way, there's a whole other module on the CRM that's going to we're going to pull in population data, income data, and trend it, and be able to say, oh, these areas are trending up. Now, but next week is going to, and be able to say from there, okay, how do we, how do I say this? How do we determine what's a good market to go after and determine what are the pressure points?
Right.
And really, it's the second more than the first that's important. What I'm seeing an increase in is pre-foreclosures. I'm seeing an increase in people who are in some ways in a bind about their mortgage or their home situation. So in any market you're going after, that's going to be one of the one of the motivators to look at is pre-foreclosure.
Okay.
It's sad, but more Americans are losing their home to foreclosure now than ever before. Partially, we're still at the tail end of the COVID survival. People had that moratorium, that shit tagged on the back end, and it just ended a year or so ago. And now they're realizing they never could afford their mortgage, or at least they can't now. So, you can forbear all you want, but eventually, if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. Or then the other, and there's a few other motivators. There's motivators like absentee owner. That's always a good one. Larger multifamily. And I'm not saying, I'm just throwing out ideas, and we'll discuss this more either offline or next week. Larger multifamily meaning 5+ for two reasons. One is 5+ units. Now, I'm not saying focus there because I don't think that nothing's the silver bullet.
Right.
But absentee owner, I don't live in the house. One of the most important things is we never say we buy homes.
Mm-hmm.
We buy houses. Houses are a thing that have no emotional attachment. Homes are a thing that has an emotional attachment. We sell homes. Okay, we don't sell homes to another investor. The guy who flips it sells a home. The guy who we buy it from and the guy who buys it from us to flip it buys a house and sells a house.
Mm-hmm.
So absentee owner, vacant, tired landlord, and there's better ways to say that when you're talking to a data company, but whatever. Estate, probate, pre-probate, variations like that. Behind in something. Another good one is Pennsylvania is the tax sales in Pennsylvania work through. There's 3 tax sales. The first one, you didn't pay your taxes for. This is property tax. So sheriff's sale is mortgages and foreclosures of other kinds of liens. Tax sale is you didn't pay your taxes in some form. Your city, state, local, whatever your county is, and school, whatever. One of those taxes, you didn't pay them. Typically 3 years you go to upset sale. Upset sale, most counties in Pennsylvania work one way. Upset sale is you get 30 days notice. Mm-hmm. So if you go to upset sale on September 1st, you get your notice on August 1st. It's a public notice. You can go to their website, the county website, you can download the list, and here's your list for in that county. That only gives you 30 days to run around, figure out which houses are worth doing, skip trace the names, call the names, whatever. Beautiful, great. Problem with the upset sale as a buyer is unless you do a title search, you'll be upset because you still owe their mortgage. Never trust a seller what their mortgage is. That was the problem we had with that really nice house that he wanted to make 50, we're going to make 50.
Mm-hmm.
Is he thought he owed 170. In actuality, there was $60,000 in COVID mortgages. And
yeah, that's crazy.
I don't believe he didn't know, but maybe he didn't know. But the reality is there's no longer 100,000 in profit left. It's now 40,000 in profit.
Mm-hmm.
And if he takes 40, well, then why am I doing this? But if it doesn't sell at the upset sale, meaning if you go and you search the upset sale list for the upset sale that just happened, depending on what your county is, I'm not saying it just happened, but whatever, you will have a year from that upset sale to the next sale, which is called the judicial, which is they call it the free and clear sale. It's not. It's the kind of free and mostly clear. There are things that don't get cleared. There are situations. I had a client who bought at the judicial, spent a crap load of money renovating this house. It came out beautiful. And then we went to sell it on the other end and discovered that there was a $1.7 million judgment that was put on before the sale he bought it at, but after that county did the judicial sale title search.
Mm-hmm.
So even though what he should have done is as soon as he bought it, he should have gone and title searched it, and then before he put any money into it. But the point is that year between upset and judicial, you've got a year to talk to these people.
Right.
And say, listen, you survived the first tax sale, but that knife is on a pendulum and it's coming back. You didn't miss the tax sale. You survived the first round. And then the third round after judicial, if it doesn't sell at judicial, it ends up on what's called the repository list. And I don't truthfully know who owns it in that gray area, whether the county owns it or the person owns it, i.e., can they still be living there? But once it doesn't sell at the judicial, it goes to the repository list. And you can go to your county right now, you can get the repository list, and you can go to them and say, hey, here's this property on the repository list. I want to offer you $500. And the county gets to decide. So really, our window is not after judicial. Our window is before judicial. It's either before upset or between upset and judicial.
Okay.
Out of other, some counties do it slightly differently. I don't think it's exactly a standard across the state, but kind of. Other states, obviously, complete crapshoot. I mean, they might not even be deed states. That's a whole different. Every state's different when you get to that. The other way to do it, and this is another manual, actually fairly free way to do it. Now, do you have PropStream, by the way?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So afterwards, I want to talk to you about something because I have an idea. Because Deal Machine has the ability to do free skip tracing.
Mm-hmm.
So remind me to talk to you probably later today or tomorrow. We can talk about that. But I have an idea on that.
Okay.
So you said what are called right to know requests, sunshine law requests. So you call your municipal code officer, and you say, "Hey, I want a list of your condemned properties, code violations, whatever." You're going after code. You're going after variations of code violations. And they'll usually say, we don't keep that information. We don't share that information. Okay. You want to play it that way? We'll play it that way. I'm now filing an official right to know request under Pennsylvania Sunshine Law. I want this information. They're being very friendly about it, but you've now kind of called their bluff. And it's not really a bluff because many of these smaller municipalities don't put things in their database, or if they do a pretty lame job of it. They're still living in the 1950s and, stuffing, whatever into the file cabinets. So to respond to these is a pain in the ass. And they may still refuse it, but, go to a couple of towns, we'll show them you're legit and, you can get there with certain towns. And what you'll get is a list of addresses and owners' names and and then we'll show you how to get those skip traced. And that's where the Deal Machine comes up, because Deal Machine is a subscription that offers free skip tracing to a certain amount. So what I was thinking is maybe I'll get Deal Machine, I'll give up my PropStream, I'll get Deal Machine, you keep PropStream, whatever. But the point is that that's another category. It's people with code violations. Now, there are some counties and communities that you'll buy this list. You'll call up and say, hey, I want your code violations list. Philadelphia might be that organized. I don't know. And hey, listen, I want your code violation. Oh, sure. Send me $5. I'll send you the download link or whatever their method is. So that's another category because these people have violations by the city against them.
Yeah.
And no problem. Now, you saw me with, when I was flashing through the Zoho forms, I have a lending section.
Mhm.
I'm okay with possibly, and you'd still get some compensation on this, if somebody said, I don't really want to sell the house, but I could use $5,000 to fix it. Okay, well, we can certainly have that conversation. Whatever. But so if they do, so they want to keep it, they want to list it, they want to keep it and get lending on it, we can talk about a bunch of things. But anyway,
Okay.
oh God, sorry, I'm just gonna stress a little bit here.
Okay.
So those are a few different ways that, we'll be able, you can, those are some things when you're talking about things to target. Those are some categories to target. The other topic on that is locations. And I honestly, in the self-storage world, which we'll cover very briefly today, more in a different time, I honestly had this conversation with my self-storage mentor because he said, well, you just pick a market. You pick a market you like. And I'm like, okay, I pick it because it's pretty. I pick it because, what am I picking it for? He's like, oh, just pick a market you like. I'm like, yeah, that's easy for you to say. You've been doing this for 10 years. So it is hard to pick a market because it is kind of like a dartboard game. I'll show you where I'm going in self-storage, which that's the population data, the metrics data, the income data. That's why I'm doing that research project. But a lot of times it's just a metrics game. Now, one of the metrics is geography? Is it close to you? Is it a town you understand? There are people that wholesale nationwide, kind of, I'll do it anywhere. But the guys that I know that do the best, they do it in an area they understand. And that's what we're trying to go with. Like if you said, "Oh, I know Tulsa, Oklahoma really well." Okay, well, we can have that conversation. Because if you don't know a town, you don't know good side, bad side. You don't know. And even if you do know a town, like Philadelphia pretty well.
Right.
But that doesn't mean, if somebody says, especially bigger cities like Philly and Baltimore, and I grew up in Boston area, 1200 block of Tremont Street is multi-millionaires. Well, 1300 block of Tremont Street, you get shot.
That's
So like if you don't know the town, you don't know the neighborhood play. You don't know the. So I like to work where we know, but also a few towns, regions, whatever. And I'm just going to pick a few. Lancaster, Reading. Those are from Joe Scarice, the guy who I'm on his podcast every week, and I do a little bit. He does some of my lending for me, and I do a little bit of lending brokering for him. And I can, if you want to get into lending brokering, I can talk to you about that too. But Joe mentions Lancaster almost at least once a month as an up and coming market. Reading. Now Joe is. I'm never speaking to Joe when he's not traveling to or from some event somewhere. Pretty much Mississippi east, from the Mississippi River east, is most of his events. But like the guy's all over the place, so he knows trends. All these different places. Reading, Lancaster. Another one came from an attorney of mine who he's a real estate attorney, but he's not a real estate investor. He buys shopping malls, so he's not at this level. But he mentioned Tamaqua and around that. There's an L town up there. I can't think of the name of it. And Lansdale. And the reason for that one is because and this came from his own personal experience, he's closing for his clients on 4 new properties where they're going to build those warehouse things, those big open plan, like I call them glass warehouse towers, like for the Amazons and those.
Okay.
They're building a bunch more of those outside of Hazleton, and the reality is Hazleton, that was built up 10 years ago. Hazleton's at the top of the market. There's nothing affordable living in Hazleton anymore.
Right.
Okay. You're saying like the Lansdowne area.
Yeah. So Tamaqua, I think it's land sale. Basically, suburb of Hazleton. Go say Hazleton. Go a little south.
Okay.
Those are the kinds of, and that's why I want to get this population metric, square foot of building metric. That's why I want to build this data tool, because then it gives a little bit less of a dartboard game. But also a lot of it is like, okay, okay, well, if you, and my self-storage mentor said this, he's like, they buy nationwide. He's like, we're actually buying most of the southeastern U.S. now. We're not buying a lot locally. But he's like, because I'm here, he's like, if a deal comes up in blah, 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 I'll know instantly whether that deal makes sense. So there is a lot of, in your backyard, and you'll be like, oh, well, da, da, da. So like, as far as the code violation, so it's always good to start in your backyard, but like Tamaqua, Reading, Lancaster, great targets. Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, you come up here to Luzerne and Lackawanna County. So for my personal buying, I guess, silo, is residential in Luzerne and Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania, up here. So if you were targeting up here, and it's a multifamily, singles are rare for me, but this is me personally. This is not a good idea. This is just, hey, what Steve's looking for. Up here. If you're looking at, now the last thing, so does that all make sense? I don't want to jump to the last thing.
Yeah. You said Scranton, that you said that's your area.
Yeah. Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, Hazleton, up here like that.
Okay.
So Hazleton is the southernmost city in Luzerne County.
Mm-hmm.
The county's a little longer than that, but Hazleton's kind of the bottom. Wilkes-Barre is the top. Scranton is the only city in Lackawanna County. It's right next to Wilkes-Barre, and then it goes up from there. Another one that's very popular, I have a lot of investors who are Berwick, Bloomsburg, whatever. Felt that way. I mean, East Stroudsburg is good. I'm not saying these are better than others. I'm just saying that in terms of stuff. But for me personally, it's Luzerne, Lackawanna County, and pretty much anything north of Allentown. Now, the last section that I wanted to cover, just very briefly, is there. It is the self-storage angle, and this isn't as much. I mean, I am buying self-storage anywhere in the Northeast, and I'm a member of the largest self-storage, which is I will be teaching you guys some of this, but I'm a member of the largest. You look up a guy named Scott Myers, selfstorageinvesting.com. His mentorship program is quite expensive. But the wholesale community in there is huge. And I'll be perfectly honest. If you find a wholesale facility, then our split, meaning what Ryan and you split, not me, because I'm on the other side of it. If I end up buying it, I'm paying a flat $5,000 fee on every self-storage facility I buy. So like I'm paying 5, you and Ryan are splitting it the percentages we talked about, boom, done, whatever. And I don't know that telling you, oh, go do self-storage is a good plan. But oh crap, hang on a second. But this is one way to come across it. And what I'm looking for is and I don't know why I'm picking Reading. I'm trying to get to where it shows me the Google list of self-storage facilities. Which I don't know why it's not showing me.
Like the mom and pop ones that you be.
Yeah, and exactly. And basically, okay, so this is what I'm talking about. So you've got this, and you've got these are the ones in Chestnut Hill. That's not a name brand. Public Storage, that is a name brand. Not saying it's not locally owned, but less important, less useful. Self-storage station. Now, if we go and we add, and this is where I'm not good with this tool, but there's a way of adding the satellite layer to this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Traffic incidents. Satellite. Okay, there it is. Now, here's what another self-storage guy that I know taught is, all right, so we've got, and I probably won't find one, but okay. Here is Moose Crossing Self-Storage. Moose Crossing Self-Storage is definitely not a national brand, so they would be worth calling. But his trick is, I'm going to pretend I'm flying a little airplane here. Because the beautiful thing about self-storage, okay, this is a bad example of a self-storage facility that fits my model. Because this doesn't look like your usual self-storage. Your usual self-storage looks like a bunch of hot dogs like that. Because it's the drive-up ones.
Right.
His whole point is the drive-up ones have a very visually identifiable look. This is kind of actually a good example because these are probably a row of self-storages and a row of self-storages. So when you have a bunch of buildings lined up like this, that's probably a self-storage facility. Now, I could guess that this is probably part of that, but maybe it's not. So what his whole point was is if you found buildings that look like self-storage that don't have a Google Doc, that's a totally poorly managed self-storage facility. So then you would note down the address and we would help you walk through to the actual contacting the owner. Now, in this case, you might pop this one up here. And okay, this one, of course, it might not have a website. If it doesn't have a website, it's a poorly managed facility. So Moose Crossing, I would want to talk to them because they're not nationally owned. Or have you talk to them and go through the questions. If they didn't have a website, I want to talk to them even freaking more because they're poorly run. If they didn't even have a Google Doc or it was an unclaimed Google Doc, it existed, but it said claim this business. Well, actually, it kind of does. Like, they're not claiming their Google. If it says manage this business, it probably hasn't claimed it. They probably haven't claimed it yet. So his whole thing is you fly over the area. Oh, look, a lake. You fly over the area, like, okay, well, too bad. I was just gonna say this is great, Storage King. I still want to talk to Storage King because I don't know who the hell they are. They're not a national brand. I still think they're worth talking to. We pop up their map. Okay, they do have a website. Okay, fine, but they don't have a Google Doc. This one, if again, bad example because these are clearly trailers. This might be worth talking to because it's a place where storage could happen, but maybe it's a trucking yard. So if you're flying, and the point is, if you fly over and you're like, oh, and this isn't like spend hours. This is like, okay, I've scanned the area and I don't see anything that really tells me it looks like a self-storage facility. And the other thing when you're looking at self-storage, and this is not a don't call them, but how many rooftops are nearby? Self-storage is based on about a 10 to 20 minute drive around. The reason I say it's not a don't call them is because in my training, and I do have to jump to my 1245, but in my training, they threw up the example property that we all had to run through in the training was in a place with 945 person population. And you're looking at the Google Maps and you're like, who the hell is there to buy self-storage? Then you start looking at the density of the rents in the rents and the occupancies of the self-storage in the area, and he showed a bunch of other things. So don't necessarily throw away the ones where there's a lot of green. Now in self-storage, again, nothing is throwaway ever. Always it depends. But if you're looking at a large facility in Philly, chances are extra space, blah, 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 will buy it for more than we will pay for it. So a lot of times we're buying in tertiary and quad and lower population markets because extra space isn't as much buying there.
Right.
So I'm not telling you not to look in the bigger cities. I'm just saying that maybe it's less critical. The whole point of this was that if you're like, oh, this might actually be one. I could be wrong, but that looks kind of self-storagey. Or else it's 3 trailers side by side. I'm a little doubting it's self-storage because those look like narrow rows. However, that's what I mean about looking over and saying, and looking over it and saying, that looks like it's self-storage. Now let me investigate further. And by no means is this something to spend a lot of time on. Certainly you're going to need a lot further by just searching an area and saying, it's funny, satellite self-storage, that's funny. I'm trying about all these satellite maps. But if you're looking at self-storage anyway, and you're like, hey, I got 3 buildings lined up here. And then you kind of find out where you're located. You're like, oh, Akela Road. And of course, I'm looking at this. I'm saying this can't possibly be self-storage because how the hell do you get to it?
Right.
This is somebody's hunting cabin or something. But you see what I mean in terms of visually it attracted because it looks like it might be self-storage. It just is shaped like.
No, that's understood. I got you.
And so in the self-storage thing, all right. So basically, that's kind of about the forms. You get them. About the residential other criteria. And the last thing is that, and I've always done wholesaling of, smaller singles and smaller multifamilies for the most part. And that's good because that's where most of the properties are, but that's bad because that's where most of the people are looking to. So it's like, okay, in the 5 pluses and 10 pluses, fewer people are looking there. There's fewer of them. There's fewer bigger property owners and whatever.
Right.
And but then same thing in self-storage. Now the last thing is if you go to your whatever county website you have, and I'm just going to real quickly go. And I'm using Lackawanna County because frankly my home county, Luzerne County, sucks for this, and I don't know why it gave me property search instead of Lackawanna County Tax Claim Bureau. But if I go to Tax Claim Bureau and I go to basic search, and I go to I look at the stupid thing here. Agree. And I go to owner. I'll teach this separately, but I happen to know this guy, so it's using his company. Oh, he owns a crap load of stuff. So they may all be 1 units or 2 units, but he could be a portfolio seller, or he could be a cash buyer. I know this guy; he'll never sell shit. He only buys. But that's something you can do within your county website. Within your county website, you can look at who owns what, and you'll get the location of the property. And when you open it up, you'll get their mailing address. Where are their tax bills mailed? So when you skip trace, you're skip tracing that. So if you're in the county website and you see somebody owns 5 or 10, 15 properties, and they have for a while, they might be. And longevity of ownership is helpful sometimes because if they've owned it for a long time, they might be tired of it. They might be facing retirement. They might be blah, 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 whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing you can do on some county websites is you can look at who's behind on their taxes. So they might not even have hit a tax sale yet, but they're behind. So playing on your county website is not a bad idea either.
Okay. Yeah, definitely good.
All right. Any questions?
And also, what about the what was it? The land software.
Oh, right. Okay, so I will cover because I can't get into that right now. I'll send you that link down over the weekend, and we'll get you started on that too.
Okay, cool.
I completely forgot to get you connected to it, so I will send me a text message. I'll remember to do that.
Cool. Will do. And that's
All
about okay. Cool.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Bye.